Hello, good evening, and thank you for joining us on yet another edition of the program, Mountain Echoes. Today is Thursday, the 20th of March, 2025. Now, the socio-political climate of the country is boiling, is reverberating from across the four corners of the country with lot happening and lot to talk about. Well, while politicians are putting together they're doing the finishing touches ahead of the presidential elections that will be coming up in October. Now, they already made political stories that animated the landscape in the years back are dynamizing or reinventing themselves in very special way. Well, top of it this week that made so much news and so much discussion, so animated so much discussion, was the 6th anniversary of the Major National Dialogue. Remember that from the 30th of September to the 4th of October 2019, Cameroonians from across the country trooped in Yaoundé, the convention Yaoundé, to discuss on the socio-political lifestyle of the Northwest and the Southwest region and the Far North region. And of course, it was called the Major National Dialogue. It is 6 years after that. What are the blessings and the bruises? The outcomes from the Major National Dialogue are felt from across the board. Well, we know about the special status given to the Northwest and the Southwest region with the coming of the Northwest and the Southwest Regional House of Assembly, if you want to put it that way, while the other regions have just the regional council. The Northwest and the Southwest have the Regional House of Assembly, and they have the House of Chiefs. And then also, what about this very important one, the presidential plan for the reconstruction of the Northwest and the Southwest region that has been in its very highly construction phase? All of these have come to make the Northwest and the Southwest region get its facelift, at least from the ashes of the war that it's been facing since 2017. Well, the Far North region also has been having some greater ties from the Major National Dialogue. Tonight, on our program, we want to look at the Major National Dialogue. Just as politicians are saying, there are a lot to count as blessings. Are there some bruises that are meant to be healed? We will have that on the program. Once again, welcome. My name is Yannick Funky. And of course, I am joined today by two very important personalities who have been following up issues regards to the Major National Dialogue and other political issues and can share their opinions very comfortably on the panel tonight. I have with me Barrister Anyang Lewis. He's a lawyer, a barrister at law with the Cameroon and Nigerian Bar Association, and he's also a politician. Rwanda. Cameroon and Rwanda Bar Association. Yes, I know about that. And definitely he's also a politician, and he's trying to put himself so positioned in the political landscape. So he's going to share his opinion on the program tonight. Thank you very much for coming, Barrister.
Thank you, Mr. Funky, for having me here. It's always great to be here to share on national issues that really concern Cameroonians seriously and that can contribute in a nation building. Greetings to my fellow panelists. Nice to meet you again, and greetings to all the televiewers.
Right. So we're having Mr. Anyang Lewis, rather Barrister Anyang Lewis, together with Mr. Nji Lucas. Mr. Nji Lucas is a civil society actor. He's written his name squarely in this crisis because he has been able to give back hope to those who were found hopeless. He himself put together an institution that caters for children of victims of this crisis. They call it the rehabilitation. That's rehab.
That's rehab.
Rehab it.
Yeah,
yes.
rehab it.
Meaning
recover and rehabilitate for better tomorrow.
Yes, recover and rehabilitate for better tomorrow. That is a very important, and it falls squarely with our conversation tonight. Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Nji.
Thank you very much, Funky Yannick. It's a pleasure being here tonight, meeting a friend and the brother, Anya Lewis. It's been a while. I haven't sat with him in this very close relationship. The topic tonight, Yannick, it's indeed a very topical one. And we shouldn't forget that when we talk about Rehabet, we are talking about one of the institutions also created to salvage the already bad situation that started in 2016 with the lawyers. It's interesting that tonight I am with someone who also was touched, whose wig, whose gown, was touched in 2016. This is to tell you that we are here to evaluate the things that truly concerns us. I want to also appreciate the members of Recover and Rehabilitate for Better Tomorrow, especially one of my core co-founders, Mr. Akwele Roland Gwese, who is very much active also on the ground, and every other partner, they know themselves, and those who are equally on the ground, the teachers, and those who said, no, the children cannot sit. We were only there to identify the problems and to solve the problems. We could not do so on our own. And we are there tonight with some of the teachers who are actively on the ground because of the ongoing crisis.
Right. Interesting. Thank you very much. Now, we'll definitely be talking about the major national dialogue. But just aside from that, before we come to a major topic tonight, let's just have a quick commentary of some major happenings that have been animating the media landscape. First, the divisional officer for Idabatu, Mr. Ewane Roland, he is now out and free. Well, he saw his freedom on Tuesday. That was when he was freed from his captors, and definitely he presented himself to the family, that is to the government, on Wednesday. That was in Yaoundé, first to the Prime Minister and then to the Minister of Territorial Administration. Mr. Ewane Roland was kidnapped on the 1st of October 2024 by allegedly pirates from Nigeria. And after the rigmarole and back and front, well, finally he's out and he's been giving praises to the government of Cameroon and also for the prayers of Cameroonians. And he's also wishing that his friend and the collector, that's the accountant of the Idabatu Council, Mr. Etungo, who is still in captivity, will be released in the soonest possible time. Well, there you have Mr. Ewane Roland presented to the Prime Minister and Head of Government there, and of course being received there, and the Prime Minister, Mr. Dr. Dr. and John Ngute Joseph, did indicate that his release is more of grace and favor than human endeavors, and it says the state of Cameroon is sufficiently proud of his release. Well, while we have the pictures rolling there, I want to first of all start with you, Mr. Nji Lucas. What do you make of it? Finally, we have Mr. Ewane Roland out.
Yes, I want to commence by thanking the civil society and the human rights organizations in the country, and the press. At a certain point, I trumpeted this and I asked several questions to the extent that some people felt like Ewane Roland, who is the civil administrator for Idabatu, was a family relative, or was a relative, or was a family. This is because it doesn't make any sense for me to think that the person who has the responsibility to secure or to ensure that this person is released or was actually set free was the family. That is, we have to understand, Yannick, this man is the direct representative of the head of state within that subdivision, which means that the head of state was not in that subdivision, but the head of state was relatively so calm about it. I want to thank the captors and appreciate their humanity that they did exercise. And I want to also praise the diplomacy of the Cameroon government while expressing my dissatisfaction for the very long time that this guy was in captivity. It is obvious that if you had succeeded to take the president captive, the president will not be that long in captivity. So what was the reason? We had quite disturbing audios, very disturbing audios that circulated on the social media on a conversation the captors had with the wife of this guy. But it never meant anything during that period. However, we know that this guy was in captivity based on those audios for two reasons. According to the audio that the wife had a conversation with some of these people, they said some Nigerians were actually arrested and they are being detained in Cameroon, and they requested for a prisoner swap and for some cash to be paid as a fine for keeping these Nigerians for long.
Well, we'll definitely go into
Yes,
all of those
but
details,
I-
those fine details later on.
Yes.
I think that we're just appreciating the fact that he's out for now.
Yes.
We're
So-
definitely going to be
Yes.
asking some questions
Yeah.
later on.
Thank you.
I think we'll just have some commentaries on it. Barrister, just give us your own take, at least for one. We're having him back, and I think that having him alive is a great victory for all of us.
Mr. Funky, I think first of all, personally, I have to commend the head of state and the government for doing the needful to secure his release, because I'm sure government has gone extra mile to secure his release, given the fact that he has stayed in a captivity. It has not really been easy. My prayers are with him and his family, because it's actually a difficult moment. But thank God he is back. However, we know, given the fact that he's a divisional officer, we were not supposed to have that security breach. Yes, and looking at the history of the Bakassi Peninsula and the Bakassi area, the government was supposed to have taken extra measures to protect all the authorities, the state authorities in Bakassi. Even now, I'm calling on the government to take extra measures to protect all state authorities, not only state authorities, but the civilians in the Bakassi area, because that area is a very fragile area. Anything can happen in that area. Although I understand that also that security cannot be total, sometimes there may be some small loopholes that men of the underworld will take advantage of it. But I think what I will say finally is that I commend the government of Cameroon for doing the needful to bring back our divisional officer, considering the fact that there is a representative of the head of state there and is a state official.
Right. Very important. And definitely we're going to have time to talk more about that. We're also praying that the stores accountant of Dabato Council, Mr. Etongo, is also released. At least he should unite with his family. And just like you all have said, we're thanking the state of Cameroon for ensuring that this comes into fruition. Well, he's hale and hearty and in his Yaoundé residence at the moment. Another very interesting story within this week, just before we come to a major topic of discussion, another interesting story is that for the opt-in time, well, Kabayege Jibril, just how many times have you heard that name as the head of the National Assembly? He was re-elected for the opt-in time as the president of the National Assembly. Honorable, call him Right Honorable Kabayege Jibril. He is the Speaker of the National Assembly. And, well, just like him, also Masenyan Jifenji, since 2013 when the Senate was erected, Masenyan Jifenji has been there for like ever, and he too was re-elected into that position. Mr. Nji, what do you make of it?
I want to be very frank. We are saying that these persons got into these houses through an election, and the party in these houses which is dominant is his or their party. We talk about the ruling party, which makes it obvious that with the party line that they often toe, the respect of party hierarchy and the respect of the rule of law within the party, you know, the party equally has laws. And with the fact that, or for the fact that some of these people are part of the very core members, and some of them are permanent representatives of the party within their respective regions and jurisdiction or their respective constituency, it makes it obvious that they have some level of respect for the party. Thus, there are people within the party who are simply called and cautioned not to vote any other person. It's obvious that sometimes, if you look at the election that takes place at the level of the parliament and at the senate, it doesn't center on the kind of, you know, elections that you have out there. It is obvious that persons have been called, networks have been put already in place.
That's your imagination.
It's not as such. It's not as such. When did you ever watch, or when did you ever watch persons who were placed to contest with these people within the same party? In some cases, they'll go in there and they say they have voted, they have given it, they have chosen this person, you know, through what you call, it has this word, which is through simple, is the acclamation or what? But what is most important is that,
well, don't you direct voting? Each parliamentarian cast their ballot.
Parliamentarians will cast
their
ballot.
135.
Politicking would now
135.
The politics do take place. The politics do take place, and it is obvious that campaigns equally take place. Yeah. So, but what you must note with the ruling party and every other party is that hierarchy is respected. You don't play with that. So, they were elected, which is good. We pray that they should be. Yeah, he talks about. I think Barrister Anyan talks about party discipline. So it is important. Now, the remark I have is they are there because they were elected, first of all, to move into the parliament. Which means that no matter what, if we don't want them for now, then we should pick up our voters' card and be ready to go into the parliament so that someday we will not have the same faces and the same names every single year or every year when they go into the parliament to elect. So that is the only way you can stop hearing about Kavayege Jibril, whom I heard before I went to primary school and whom I have heard all through my life, and I'm now great. So it's obvious.
All right. Barrister Lewis, you have the new old Kavayege Jibril as the Speaker of the National Assembly. He's been there for 1991 to 2025. That's a lot of years.
So many decades.
That's a lot of years. It's 3 decades.
But you see, Mr. Funky, the way I look at it, Cameroonians, majority of Cameroonians, they spend their time criticizing, but they don't actually take the initiative to see how they can unseat such people if they think they are too old to rule. Because it makes no sense for citizens to sit every day, you are criticizing, complaining, but when they look at you, you are not engaged in politics. You don't do anything, but you expect those who are up there to live. How will they live when you are not taking the necessary action, especially the youth? So, that aside, now, I think this has to do with democracy and real and effective democracy. In effective democracy, true democracy, there must be term limit. Leaders must have term limit. We see that in our National Assembly and at the level of the Senate. There is nothing like a term limit. Years, for decades, we have only one person as the President of the National Assembly. Don't we have other Cameroonians who can take up that position? The newly created Senate, it has had only one president, and they keep repeating it. It's the trend. It's the trend. It keeps repeating itself. That's not supposed to be like that. But however, we must always abide by the law. Whether we agree or we disagree, they were duly elected. And they had an overwhelming, they won overwhelmingly. Their party members voted for them massively. I think above 100 votes.
135?
Yes. Out of the 180 parliamentarians that we have at the level of the National
That's supposed
Assembly.
to be.
Yes.
They're supposed to be there. We have people who are no longer there.
That's
Yes.
it. So, but I think my co-panelist, he raised a very pertinent issue. At the level of the party, internally, they don't have primaries. That's why he said you don't see anybody within the party contesting with them. If they had that possibility within the CPDM to have primaries, I think something would have happened, at least by a miracle. But insofar as there is no party primaries like we see in the United States of America and other developed countries where they practice real democracy, it will be difficult for us to have that in Cameroon. And that's why I see inside the CPDM, which is a ruling government, what they use is mostly party discipline. And if you don't follow party discipline, they sanction you. And that's why I see year in, year out, we keep having the same people in strategic positions. But well, old people also have their rights. Yes. They are citizens of Cameroon. They have their rights, just as they say youths also have their rights. Old people have their rights. So if they feel they can do something for the country, then so be it. At least they are using the law to be there, so they have not done anything illegal. So I think that's what I can say.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Anyang and J. Lucas there for this very succinct take there. Definitely we're going to have more discussions on this. But now, the Major National Dialogue is 6 years old. From the 20th of September to the 4th of October 2019, Cameroonians from all walks of life converged on Yaoundé to discuss on the future of the Northwest and the Southwest region. Now, 8 committees were set up, and these 8 committees were cut across the different preoccupations of the denizens of the Northwest and the Southwest region. And from then, the committees came out with their resolutions on what they think can solve the crisis plaguing the 2 English-speaking regions. And the government says it has been implementing 6 years after. What has the government done? 1, the government says it has given the Northwest and the Southwest region a special status. That is to say, the 8 other regions have a regional council, but the Northwest and the Southwest region have a regional assembly. And this regional assembly has House of Chief and also the deliberative chambers. And that is one, but that is not all. The government prides itself that it has spearheaded, if not fast-forwarded, fast-tracked the effective decentralization process to say that powers have been devolved to local collectivities, meaning you at the grassroots can feel power very close to you. And government prides itself as it has achieved that. And that was one of the major outcomes from the Major National Dialogue. Another one is about the presidential plan for the reconstruction of the Northwest and the Southwest region. Now, government sees a lot of money has been pumped in, a lot of development had taken place in the Northwest and in the Southwest region. That is to see how it can recover and build back better the Northwest and the Southwest region. Well, it is 6 years. What evaluation can you make out of that? And then another achievement is about the fact that there are over 2,500 inmates, call them ex-separatist fighters, who are now in the Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Center in Bafut, the Northwest region, and in Miselele in the Southwest region. Now, these ex-separatist fighters will undergo some rehabilitation process, some correction process, and then they will be reintegrated into the society to become better Cameroonians. These and many more are some of the things the government prides itself as having achieved out of the Major National Dialogue, amongst other things. But what is more preoccupying, and from the meeting that was held this Tuesday, that was in Yaoundé at the Prime Minister's office, was that the Prime Minister said the government has come up with a very strong strategy to end the crisis in the Northwest and the Southwest region. Now, the government is being offensive. The government is targeting all the sponsors and those who are perpetrating or who are promoting violence in the Northwest and the Southwest region. the Prime Minister did indicate that the government of Cameroon is using diplomacy to catch, if not pick, all those who are sponsoring violence in the northwest and the southwest region. Now, all of this, the government says it will continue to spearhead that, to see that smooth diplomacy works in solving the crisis rather than killing Cameroonians in the northwest and the southwest region. These are the major discussions that took place in Yaoundé on Tuesday. That was Tuesday in the Prime Minister's office. Gentlemen, the major national dialogue is 6 years old. Mr. J,
Yeah.
what is your own appraisal about it?
The major national dialogue which took place in 2019, like you earlier recounted, was not set out to solve solely the problems or to bring solution to the two restive regions, that is the northwest and southwest regions, that is in chaos. It was a dialogue as envisaged by the President of the Republic to manage Cameroonian problems. And the decision at the end of the day, the take home for the restive regions, the northwest and southwest regions where we find ourselves, was: 1, there should be a special status granted to us, like you said, where the regional assembly was given to us as opposed to the regional council, for example, in Littoral, as opposed to the regional assembly in the southwest region, wherein the House of Chiefs is part of it. And they have a deliberative organ. And the chiefs were seen as per the eyes that created them this time around, like the chiefs that we had. If you go back to the days of the British Southern Cameroons, where we had the House of Chiefs that played a very vital role in the democracy, well-being, and policies that were crafted and implemented in the former British Southern Cameroons. But within the context of the major national dialogue, it was considered to be a two separate house, or the house belonging to the northwest and the house belonging to the southwest, with the objective that what has happened or what is happening, maybe this is what the people said. I want to be very frank that the House of Chiefs, or the special status for the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, was a complete affirmation, was a complete acceptance that what was raised by the lawyers and later joined by the teachers, later the mass population that left their houses on the 22nd of September 2016, was legitimate. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had what we call special status, because at the moment they said the special status was being given to us, it was conceived that this was going to solve the problem, because it was said that this is why we had the revendications in 2016. Now we are looking at what can we write home, and I want to stay close to the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, because it was these regions that prompted that decision for this major national dialogue to take place. Now, when you come to the southwest region, for example, you have the public independent conciliator, who is believed to be some mediator between the people and their respective constituencies. For example,
well, should say the local administrators,
or the local administrators,
yes,
the mayors,
the mayors,
basically. So they are summarily there to see that contracts that were awarded the behavior of some members of the councils, the mayors, if it's not in line with the law, then you can move to the OPIC and report these people at the level of these institutions. For the chiefs and the regional assembly, I want to say that in as much as it is not their fault, but the house is relatively homogeneous. And you know, with homogeneity, it makes it very difficult for you to solve a problem that is heterogeneous, in the sense that we have some difficulties today, not because the regional assembly said we don't want opposition, but because of the context in which the elections were held, where some people were deprived by the non-state armed groups to go for elections and others were able to receive absolute protection from the ruling party, and others could only receive partial protection because not everybody was carried in a chapel. Not everyone was airlifted. Not everyone had the privilege to get an armored car. Not everyone had the privilege to be protected by the military. Not everyone was able to be protected like those who lived in places like Bomaka, Mile 14, Mile 16, Moya, Ekuna, and the others, to move towards the ballot box to determine who becomes the next regional assembly elected official. So it was very difficult for some parties to indeed have their own people represented. However, this major national dialogue also pushed for other things that led to the prime ministerial decision or decree giving the two English-speaking regions, or giving them or naming them as sinister economies, because the situation on the ground is no longer the same like that of the littoral and that of the West region. So it made things relatively difficult. And so if you were to open a business, I'm talking about the fallout of the major national dialogue and how it had to go. So if you were to open a business, for example, all you need to do is to indicate that you want to open a business, and you could have some tax cut. Maybe if your tax were to be 4 million, maybe they could tell you to pay 500,000 CFA francs because of the nature of the economy. However, what we have not actually seen actively on the ground, except on radios and some television programs as presented, especially for the OPIC as opposed to the OPIC in the Northwest regions, that came out very vociferous and made known that civil status documents, especially birth certificate, death certificates, and marriage certificates, are free. And in several occasions, the people were out there to inform again and again, like we saw in some cases.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Barrister, looking at the fallout, it is 6 years we're talking about a major national dialogue. Yes. Is there, by your appreciation, has the government made some achievements, and do you think that there's still some work to be done?
Well, I think what I have to say first is that the convening of the major national dialogue was a very good initiative, because in case of any war, in a situation of war, dialogue is always the preferred option.
That's right.
Not even arms, not the fighting whatsoever. It's always good for the parties to sit, discuss, and see how they can resolve their issues. So when we had the major national dialogue, there were some recommendations which you have listed here, the televiewers have listened to, and to make sure that all those recommendations were implemented in the year 2020, I think 2020 or 2019, there was a presidential decree to that effect, a presidential decree to follow up the implementations of the recommendations of the national dialogue. And the committee is headed by the Prime Minister, and that's why you see they met recently. Each year they meet regularly to fast track and see what they are doing so far, their advantages, disadvantages, and the roadmap they have covered so far. Now, the major national dialogue gave birth to some institutions. Like we have the Bilingualism Commission now, we have the special status that we are enjoying, even the Code of Regional and Local Authorities that was enacted in the year 2019 to try to devolve powers to the local authorities, the regional assembly, the mayors, city mayors, and all that. Even the public independent conciliator that my co-panelists mentioned. But the problem now with the creation of all these structures is that when you look at it detailedly, you will see that the government is not really serious about resolving the issues. The government is not really serious when it comes to giving the institutions that it has created the powers to be able to realize the objectives of which they are made of. You take, for example, the Public Independent Conciliator's Office, like my co-panelists mentioned. They only handle matters when it has to do with municipal councils and city councils. In fact, the local authorities. But now, what that law doesn't empower the institution to do is that they cannot sanction the mayors. They cannot sanction the local authorities. How can you be given the power to handle matters concerning something, but you don't have the power to sanction or punish? You see that that's the problem. And that's the major problem we have in Cameroon. We have institutions that act as toothless bulldogs. They are just there. You think they are there to do something, but they don't have the power to act. Because at the end of the day, power goes back to Yaoundé. Why will power always go back to Yaoundé? I give you now the instance of the Bilingualism Commission. Yes, it's commendable. I think Cameroon will really need that Bilingualism Commission because we are a bilingual country. And there's supposed to be a special institution that is tasked with seeing to it that Cameroon is bilingual. But now, the government has created the Bilingualism Commission. Where is the head office? The head office is in Yaoundé. Do they have regional offices? We don't see them. They don't have regional offices.
Well, there is a regional office here in Boya, just by Naslas Junction here.
Okay.
There's a big signpost there. They were commissioned for bilingualism and multiculturalism.
Okay.
This year.
Yes, maybe that's an oversight. But now,
well, they're not officially installed yet, so you can also talk about them not being present.
That's what I'm talking about, and that's why I was not even aware, because they are not functioning. I'm only aware as a lawyer of things that are functioning. You go down to the level of the divisions, subdivisions. Those are the structures, the state structures. You don't find them. It's really difficult. The government has taken enough strides to see that the crisis is resolved. They have put forth some solutions, which are commendable.
Yes.
But now, I think, to me, they are half-baked solutions. Even though I applaud the government for putting in place those structures, but they are half-baked solutions. Like you see, well, maybe we'll get there, then I'll talk about it. Right. I think yes, maybe.
Now, let us, Mr. Nji, let us shift away from the government's actions and look at the situation on the ground. What is your own appraisal of the situation on the ground? Has there been some improvement? And what recommendations can you give to see that we eventually shift away from this conflict that's eating deep into the two regions and now effectively bring normalcy and serenity to the two English-speaking regions?
I want to speak from the eye of the civil society that I am. I want to speak realistically. I have worked in Kumba, Muyuka, Boya, Tiko, as concerning this period and this crisis. With all the laudable and very fine ideas put on papers by the government of Cameroon, we have the reality on the ground. And the reality on the ground is that we have institutions whose impact is not felt by the people.
Exactly.
And this is because the people manning these institutions, they take advantage of the people's ignorance. And the ignorance of the people is indeed aiding them to carry out actions that are not right. For example, with the decentralized structures which are part of the recommendations of the major national dialogue to speed it up, so as to see that the people down there should enjoy what they deserve. I want to take the case of the local mayors. For those who do not know, there are certain funds that have been made available at the disposal of the local mayors for the welfare of the people. When you look at the regional council, looking at the power that is being given to them and the mayors, we talk about education, we talk about economy, we talk about culture, we talk about sport. But to face the truth and say it the way it is, we have been talking for some time now about reforms in the educational system, which before we go to look at it from the pedagogy that would have been, or the curriculum, that should leave the ministries, we are expecting that the mayors should be able to propose with respect to reality, because they are the ones within their respective constituency. That is, they know the reality. I'll take the case of Buea, for example. When you talk about education within Buea, you talk about the Buea economy. Now, the mayors have been given some money. They have some fund. For example, when you look at social affairs, for example, social affairs has some money that has been made available for them. But when you talk about people with social problems, the municipal council is supposed to champion the solution for people with social problems, which is one of the recommendations of the major national dialogue, to fast track decentralization. But it is not happening. We have been talking about the educational system. That is, the mayors are supposed to look through their lens that is within their subdivision and identify how to make better yours. That, for example, we have not had the mayors within Buea, or the mayor within Buea, or talk about the mayors within Fako, that there was a time they came out that we think that this is what our schools need to do, or do a follow-up of the things happening in schools. That we have heard that schools have laboratories, but we don't see children effectively in terms of practicals, because such is lacking. We have not heard that. We have not equally seen the regional council on the ground, talking to the people about the culture, talking to the people about the parts that have been devolved.
But there's a Southwest Cultural Festival.
The cultural festival should not be limited for people to come and demonstrate the culture. There should be a mechanism to see that there is a follow-up for that to be. Because if you go by what the government presented, that the people revendicated because they believe that what they brought into this union is fading out, and no one is having a listening ear, or no one has ever given a listening ear, so to say, to solve that problem. So they created these institutions to solve the problem of the common man. But sometimes when you talk to some of these people, they will tell us that, how do you expect us to work when the governor is still representing the state, when we have the moment to discuss about the region?
Right.
Some went as far as telling me that they would prefer that their budget should be generated locally, rather than relying that Yaoundé should give them money, to carry out their project. Some claim that their project, the money comes very late, so they cannot even execute their project. And some have executed a lot of projects on pieces of paper. But if you go down, for example, we had a problem to have DMRTV. And when the Diocese of Buea, through Bishop Emmanuel, Michael Bibing, pardon, came. They saw the need to create DMRTV, and today we can talk through DMRTV. That is, DMRTV is not on the piece of paper, but DMRTV, you now sit in the Unity Palace, you will watch DMRTV. So the projects, they will always tell us that they have executed. When you go to these places, you don't find this project on the ground. You don't see this project solving the problems. Because what is most important is that you solve problems with people seeing that this solution is coming as a result of this institution. But they will tell you that someone placed a complaint, the OPIC, the Office of the Independent Conciliator, will tell you that some people came, contractors took contract, they did not execute it. We have seen a practical contract awarded here in Buea, the bridge at Bakure Town. That has taken more than 6 months. That was, if you go to that project title and the project layout, you will see there it's written 6 months. But it is more than 6 months. And we have not heard the OPIC with any comment on it, why it has taken more than 6 months. So these are the realities. They are on the pieces of paper, but they are not solving the problem on the ground. They will receive the monies, but they will not solve the problem. They will tell us about boreholes. They will tell you that they increase rooms, classrooms. They will tell you about places, Ekuna, Muyuka, and the rest. But when you look at the situation where children now you now have the majority of children learning, Buea is relatively what you call green zone, as within our own context, as concerning the ongoing crisis or the ongoing armed conflict, where you have many children going to school in Buea than in those places that will tell you that there are boreholes, or than in those places that will tell you that they have built 2 classrooms, 3 classrooms. They will tell you that they have put solar panels in areas where if you go there, only grass cutters or porcupines and the rest, you find them in those areas.
That's a national problem. I think it's not peculiar just to the northwest and the south.
No, we are looking,
because if you go to places like Meganga, you go to far off in the east region, the Adamawa region, you have these problems that are really there and they are similar. But I want to talk about the peculiarities for the northwest and the southwest region. Now, there are 2 things. We're trying to solve an armed conflict, and we're trying to develop
before you get the mic, if you permit.
Please, we don't have time. We're
yes, but to solve the armed conflict, please. Yes. Now, take note. You do not solve a problem that has to do with arms when the guns are still raging. You can only effectively put this and solve the problem. I was listening to you, or listing those that you can handle within a particular area and get solution that will be, that will solve the problem for the meantime. Because there are things that you cannot solve as the armed conflict is concerned, because there are places that these people cannot access.
Right. Now, the Prime Minister and Head of Government, Chief Dr. John Godey, did indicate that the government is using a very tactical diplomatic approach in solving the armed conflict. So it has liaised with its diplomatic allies across the world, and they are fishing out all separatist sponsors from the different parts of the world. And according to the Prime Minister, if you cut the source of financial outflow, you're definitely going to cut the proliferation of arms, and in a greater sense, the armed conflict. I think that Cho Ayaba has been arrested. We have very prolific names that are now in jail thanks to the government's diplomatic alignment. How do you rate the conflict at this stage? So are we looking at maybe in a couple of months or years for the conflict to come to an end?
No, I cannot really say whether in a couple of months or years the conflict will come to an end, because I'm not part of those who are trying to see how to put an end to the conflict. But rest assured that if I were the head of one of those who are tasked to put an end to the conflict, it will not last more than a month. Yes.
You have a magic wand to that?
For instance,
maybe you share with us what you have as a magic wand to solve this armed conflict, because the government has been seeking for ways to solve the conflict for over 8 years now, and you say that you will not last for a month. That's what you said.
If I were the head of state,
if you were the head of state, it will not last for a month.
It will not last.
So what would you do?
Because primarily, first, normally there should be no war in any country, any civil war or any conflict that will resort to arms. Citizens of the same country fighting, killing each other. Normally, as a head of state, you are not supposed to allow that, because the role of the head of state in particular and government in general is to guarantee peace for the citizens. Because without peace, nothing can happen. We are seated here today because at least there is peace. And with peace, as human beings, we can live happily and enjoy our lives. I know when there is no peace, people are suffering, which is not supposed to be the case. And I think, and I'm suggesting to government, if government adopts the policy that the insecurity of one is the insecurity of all, they will solve this Anglophone crisis. Because it's not proper that ever since the Anglophone crisis started, it's getting to a decade, there is no solution. Despite the national dialogue, no solution. We have the committee to follow up the recommendations of the national dialogue. They meet yearly, every year. We cannot be dialoguing forever. You get it? We cannot be talking forever. They should take concrete steps, hit the nail on the head. But now, coming to your issue, you mentioned the fact that now the government is trying to see how they can fish out the sponsors abroad. I think it's part of the measure that the government really has to take to ensure that there is peace and security in the Northwest and Southwest regions. Because if some people are getting funding from out of the country to do whatsoever, to do what is illegal and undermine the security of the state, that is not proper. The case of Ayabacho, I don't know if it's the government who masterminded it. Yes, but what I can say is that, yes, our CPC makes provision for extradition. If a Cameroonian has committed a crime in Cameroon, who is abroad, the Cameroon government has the right to engage legal proceedings to see how they can extradite that citizen.
Provided they have the treaty.
For him to come back to Cameroon and face the charges before the person. But what is important, you know, in criminal law, there's the principle of legality and rule of law. Generally, due process. Even in the process of extraditing, you must follow due process. You cannot just go to a foreign country and be doing some kind of things. You bring people here illegally. It doesn't sell the image of the country very well. It doesn't sell the image of the country very well. But whatsoever government is doing to cut off funding for those who are doing things to undermine the security of the state is commendable. They should do it within the bounds of the law. And above all, like I said, the crisis has been going on for long. We are Cameroonians. We should discuss the topics that some people think they cannot discuss to put an end to this crisis. This crisis has been going on for too long. You look at most divisions in the Southwest, most divisions and subdivisions in the Southwest and Northwest regions, they are not functioning very well. And it's causing Cameroon to instead regress instead of progressing. You look at the economic activity, it has been grounded somehow. CDC, the second
largest employer. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's really down. And I think CDC, they are really in debt now. Recently, the government disbursed some money to try to see how they can help CDC. So the crisis is not good for us. And there is one very important thing. Wherever there is crisis, you will not see foreign investors. Even national investors, you will not see them. Let's not forget our diaspora. Their wallets are huge. And we in the Northwest and the Southwest regions, the diaspora, they contribute a lot. If you look at the amount of money that the diaspora they send, it's a lot. But they cannot send it the way they were supposed to send it because of the crisis. So I appeal on the government to do the needful. Because as a leader, you cannot sleep when a part of your country, they are not asleep because of crisis for too long. I think it's really too long. Every year in now they're commemorating their 6th anniversary. I don't think it's really an anniversary, honestly. Because when you say an anniversary, it's something to celebrate.
Right.
Yeah, but there's nothing to celebrate about it.
All right. So, Mr. Nji, Now, the government keeps saying the northwest and the southwest region has amounted some level of normalcy that exists in the two English-speaking regions, and but then we still find a lot of insecurity, especially in the hinterlands. Yes, we still find so much of it. And worst of it, in the northwest region, Bamenda, that's the regional capital, it's having quite a lot of it. And now we are entering into the 8th year into this conflict, and it has to end at some point. The government has made some concessions. We all see, I mean, from the major national dialogue we can see. Do you think that the conflict is still a cause that should be upheld even by our brothers who have picked up arms and are pushing all these things? Do you think they need to make some concessions? Do you think at some point they too should be considering the fact that this conflict should come to an end and life should return to its normalcy?
Yeah, Yannick, let me be honest with you. If someone says the phone you have is mine, and you refuse, and at certain point you say, okay, yeah, the phone is yours. However, I took it, and I pray you give it that I use it for maybe 2 days or 3 days more before I return it to you. You have simply given that person the time to always talk about the bad things you do. What am I talking about? The concessions are equally good for the non-state armed groups to take, which, if I am to be very frank, many people out there will not like it. The major national dialogue and the special status is a validation of the legitimate worries raised by the people. You know, at certain point, the non-state armed groups were a set of people we considered to be moderates. They had not moved to the extreme position we now have. In 2017, there were arms, but the rate of the arms that were in 2017 could not be compared to the rate we had in 2018. I remember Ben Muna, his famous outing on that day. He was interviewed, if permitted, to quote by STV that night when the minister sat in Bamenda and the meeting went sour. Then he came out and told the people they should fight. They are fighting for their right. We have fought. They should not fight. It is their right. That's what he said. And in 2019, the major national dialogue held, and the special status was given with the intention that the people will have to lay down their arms and move back to their homes and leave the bushes. That was a certification that the government of Cameroon did something wrong. The moderates at the time had gone to an extreme position. Those of us who were trapped, we took it and we were now telling the people that the government of Cameroon has said this. Because we were trapped, we could not move. Given that whenever we wanted to make a move, they would tell us that we are pro-government. But when the government acknowledged that there was a problem and gave the special status, we began preaching the good news. But the extremists called us blacklegs, and the extremists had left from what most of them talked about, a federal government, though the government brought it with its own name, known as effective decentralization. The federalists had left from that position of being federalists to secessionists. So we are no longer talking with people who are federalists. We are no longer talking with people who were simply expressing disobedient, as we had the case on the 22nd of September 2017. We are now talking with people who are separatists. So you cannot tell a separatist, I'm sorry, I know that Chief Dr. Joseph Diongute and the entire presidency is watching. Take it from me as an active civil society member, that those who came out in 2017 on the 22nd of September, it is easier because they had long moved, and that is why some of these people began fighting with the state.
Should we stay in that narrative because mistakes were made? Don't we need to move a step further? I am asking you the question. Don't you think the separatists need to make some concessions?
You are talking about
in your own estimation, your own opinion.
No, we are talking about the separatists. We are talking about someone who has already the urge to separate and has arms. And the people who...
If you had an opportunity to talk with them,
if I had
telling them that they... because they are separating, they should just continue separating?
If I had an opportunity to talk to them, like I told Cho Ayaba, and I told him on this same platform, that Cho Ayaba, firstly, I did not designate you to fight for me. Then I told Cho Ayaba that at this moment, I acknowledge that Mr. Biya and his friends are not indeed thinking well about us. However, we should not sit on Mr. Biya's intention to kill our people. We should not sit on Mr. Biya's intention and deed to cause our people not to go out on Mondays and do their businesses. We should not sit on Mr. Biya's intention and his friends and deed to inflict pain by chopping off the fingers and the hands of our people.
Right.
I told Cho Ayaba this, and this is what I'll tell Cho Ayaba and his friends, that it is time for us to come back and let us put up rather a political front that should be pro for the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, for the betterment of these people, other than fighting and killing innocent people like we had the guys killed in Bomaka on Monday.
Right.
That is what I tell them every day.
Thank
that
you.
It is absolutely wrong.
Right.
So though Mr. Biya and his friends have pushed the people to the war, we should not take their narrative. We should be who we have always been. The average Northwest and Southwesterner does not believe in arms. They believe in dialogue. We believe in the power of the tongue.
Right. Thank you very much,
Yes.
Mr. Njie. We are running out of time. Let me have your final thoughts on this subject matter. Well, I think I can't really ask you a question because of time.
Okay. I think the government of Cameroon really needs to get serious. We all agree to the fact that the president, one time in Paris, during the Paris Peace Conference Summit, he said the plan was to assimilate the English Cameroonians. Everybody can agree on that.
Yes.
But that was really wrong.
Yes.
Because you cannot be a president of the republic, you cannot acknowledge the historical differences that exist within the country and the peculiar nature of a particular group of people. However, we have found ourselves where we are today, and all we need as Cameroonians is for the government to be serious. Okay, the legal instruments that the government has put in place, the structures, the institutions that the government has put in place, they should make those institutions to be effective. They should do what they are supposed to do according to their objectives. Then coming out to the laws, we see that one of the issues that led to this crisis was the fact that Anglophones, it got to a point where they felt like we were in a French region. Yes, because even the judiciary, you see they sent magistrates, Francophone magistrates, which is not really proper. And unfortunately, Article 45 of our Constitution states clearly that international treaties shall override national laws. Where do we find ourselves today? You see that OHADA law, which is an international treaty, has overridden our national laws. And the OHADA community in general, and the OHADA uniform acts, including the OHADA court, mostly in French. The court is mostly in French. They handle their matters in French. How now do you expect English Cameroonians to be able to access justice using the OHADA Uniform Acts? How is that really proper? And to go further, OHADA Uniform Acts, they have undermined the superiority of our Supreme Court, because matters under OHADA law, when they leave our Court of Appeal, they go straight to Abidjan, where you have the Common Court of Justice and Arbitration. That is not proper. We cannot be in a country where we leave our own country, we go to another country to get justice and come back to our own country. That is not proper. That OHADA Uniform Acts, they constitute a major problem to Anglophone Cameroonians. And let's not forget, OHADA Uniform Acts, they govern business. Business forms part of the economy. So how do petty traders, normal business people get justice? It becomes a serious issue. And the working language of OHADA is French, not even English. So the government of Cameroon, whatever they are doing, they should first of all protect the interests of the Anglophones. It's very important. Right. They should not take that for granted. And I want to say one thing again, please. You see, the government now, as a result of the national dialogue, in 2019, they put in place the Code of Regional and Local Authorities, giving powers now to local authorities. And it's clearly stated in Section 9 of that decree that local authorities shall be autonomous administratively and financially. It brings us now to a serious problem that we have now. Our mayors, our councils are not really independent because they are still supervised and controlled by the divisional officers, senior divisional officers and the governor at the level of the regional council. How can a council headed by a mayor who is elected by the people, a council that is supposed to be autonomous and independent, be under the authority of a divisional officer, senior divisional officer? That is not proper. Mayors are supposed to be independent, because it's only through that our mayors can really have the power to bring the development that we so desire. It's only through that. And also, one major recommendation that was made as a result of the major national dialogue was the setting up of the Limbe Deep Seaport, the Tico International Airport. You know, a seaport is something that is very strategic. Douala is like that because of that Douala port.
For sure.
Take away the Douala port, Douala will be nothing.
For sure.
But how come the government, if the government really cared about the interests of the people, instead of setting up the Limbe Deep Seaport, they set up the Kribi Deep Seaport? I know some people will talk about the economic advantages
because of time. We will talk about that. We'll talk about that later.
So we just wish the government should do the needful to make Anglophones feel like they belong in their own country.
Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for this very important analysis. I think that you two have really touched some very pertinent issues, and I think that whoever is watching must have picked up one or two notes, and together we can make the nation a better one. I want to thank you, Barrister Anyan Lewis, for honoring our invitation. We'll definitely be having you again.
Thank you too for inviting me. I'm always elated to be here. My only prayer is for the President of the Republic to do the needful and put an end to this crisis. It can be resolved.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Nje Lucas, for coming.
It's a pleasure for being here. I pray that everything work out the way we have it. We have only a few days. May is the deadline for registration for elections. I'm calling on the My 16 community to actively be involved.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, to you, dear viewers, thank you very much for watching. We'll be together again tomorrow on Mountain Acres. My name is Yannick Funky, and JC Agumant, the broadcasting and transmission. Good night.